I'd like to call into session April 27, 2023, 5 o'clock, work session for the Fiscal Court. If everybody would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hope everybody's doing well today, tonight, be today out there. First, for our work session, I'd like to ask, is there any public comments? Okay. Seeing no public comments, we're going to move on. We have some guests in the room tonight, so I'm going to move the work session around a little bit, so I hope magistrates are okay with that. First, I'd like to go ahead and talk about the PACE project for Spring Hill Suites. Chris, would you like to come up maybe and kind of explain it? I know there's some questions within the court just as far as how it works and things like that, so if you could kind of go through whatever you need to go through.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, again, my name is Chris Jones. I'm with Energize Kentucky. We're the assigned program administrator for the county's energy project assessment district. I think probably just in the way of a quick history, the EPAD, for short, on the Energy Project Assessment District, was passed through ordinance back in 2019, and then of course, COVID happened shortly thereafter, and we haven't had any projects to bring forward. But this is the first project that is being brought in front of the Fiscal Court. The way that PACE financing works, and I do want to give another acronym there. So PACE is, generically speaking, Property Assessed Clean Energy. It is a way for a property owner to invest in energy efficiency or renewable energy building improvements, and this is all for commercial properties. So we're not talking at all about single family residential. So all commercial properties. And it can be used on an existing building that wants to make those energy efficiency improvements, or it also can be used as a development financing tool on a new construction related project. And that's what we're bringing forward here today. I guess to speak at a high level from a mechanism standpoint, this is all private funds. So in short, what's happening is we have these private PACE lenders that the property owners, such as the Patels, so you'll meet here in just a second, have agreed to financing terms with. And so once those financing terms are agreed upon, then we determine as the program administrator the improvements that are being brought forth do have the energy efficiency or if there's a renewable energy component to them. So we oversee that. We have private legal counsel that prepares all of the documents that would be necessary for this special assessment request. And then kind of at the end of this, this is really what this is all about. The property owner is requesting from you as the Fiscal Court the special assessment that is necessary for the repayment of this PACE loan. And with that, I'll maybe stop and see if that makes sense, or if there's any kind of questions from the structural. And I guess I will kind of add on is, so one, if you so choose to, approve the special assessment, what happens there is that, again, the county is not on the hook at all financially. This is private funds that come in. If there is a, unfortunate default or a foreclosure, the county is not responsible, for making up this special assessment payment. That is all clearly stated in the legal documents that, that have been presented today. So I just wanted to make that very clear, that this is essentially a pass-through special assessment.
Thank you very much. Before we ask for questions, I'm just gonna, County Attorney, we reviewed this, you've reviewed this. Any issues that talks to the court about?
Did I say so?
No issues. Okay, so I'm gonna ask members of the court, any questions for Chris? All right, the questions getting off very easy tonight. Yeah, please invite them up here.
Well, Judge, I'm sorry. May I ask one? Thank you for being here with us tonight. It talked about the pretty sizable document, talked about the annual assessments, that they're going to be issued separately as the property tax bill. So how does that mechanism work, and who receives that, and since the Fiscal Court is a pass-through agent, so there's no paperwork that needs to be handled, no receiver of funds, and then showing the receipt of funds, and then an expense of funds, or anything in that nature, because I was on the court that, and several of my brethren here were on the court that passed this, but this is the first time we're having someone take the opportunity that's in front of them to utilize this.
Yes.
So for every member of the court, this is something new, so it might help us just to kind of understand a few of those nuances.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So, as
As
it's
it's stated in the EPAD ordinance, as the program administrator, it does allow us, the authorization and ability to actually bill and collect the special assessment, because from the program administrator, we want this to be as easy as possible. We really want, as minimal administrative burden, on any part of the governmental side of this. So what we've done in the actual program financing documents is clearly state that as Energize Kentucky, we would be the ones responsible for actually billing and collecting the special assessment, and then directly remitting that back to the PACE funder. And then we would then provide on an annual basis just a reconciliation report to you, just, to make sure that, yes, that is current and due. Obviously, if there would be a delinquency or whatever, then, we would get the attorneys involved at that point. But it's also something that we do in most of the programs that we manage around the state, including Louisville's, including Woodford counties. And it does make it very streamlined and, again, less burden on the county.
It talks about a period of 30 years, so can that be, because it says on page 5, the property owner can prepay everything, and then there's no penalty for, I guess, early payment of things, and then how would this work? Because this talks about a 30-year period, so let's say they paid off in 20, is there still 10 more years of this effort?
Yeah.
Then beyond that,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand the nuance of that.
Absolutely, yeah. So I
think then actually this term for this particular loan is going to be a 25-year term. The final assessment schedule will be actually submitted for, a judge's signature, but 25-year term. To answer your question on a prepayment, let's just say that they wanted to prepay 10 years into a 25-year term, they would be prepaying, the remaining balance, at that point in time. And there would be actually a prepayment penalty that is documented in but again, that's all paid and borne by the property owner.
It talked about a period of 30 years. Well, as a matter of fact, I know it is.
Yeah, so with regards to the 30-year term, I think that,
so on one of the final exhibits there, we do have what will be a very close 25-year assessment schedule. That's there. Maybe the text in the document, if there's still a 30-year term, that's what will be a final number that will be inserted there again for the judge's signature.
There was a period it mentioned years here in this document.
And then just for kind of general information, a 30-year term is the maximum
term, but that would be said. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a very good question.
Chris, if I could ask, is there any other PACE projects in Franklin County right now?
So right when COVID hit, there was a new construction assisted living project that we were aware of, but I believe that's still in a paused status. But other than that one, there hasn't been one that's come to the program at that point.
Ultimately, if this passes, it'll be the first energy style project in Franklin County.
It will be, yes.
Perfect.
It will be.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Squire Wiseman, I believe I saw your hand.
Yeah, thanks. More of a question for.
I suppose our ordinance, I brought this up in our energy committee meeting, our ordinance specifically says that the sheriff's office will be designated as the ones to collect and assess. And we question whether that would comply with the intent of the contract that Mr. Jones's group would actually be doing that on our behalf, because there was concern amongst this body, I think previously and continuing, about what additional burden on our staffing and that process would require. So can someone speak to that? Do we need to alter our ordinance, or is the contract written in a way that we're complying?
And could I just, kind of make one comment again to the ordinance under the administration of the program?
A4, when the so if there wasn't an assigned administrator, then you're correct. The way that the ordinance is written is that, yes, as the governmental office, the sheriff would be the one to collect. But, since we were assigned as the program administrator, I think that's one of the clear roles and duties that, is allowed. And then that is kind of stated in these two financing documents, just as a comment to that.
Yeah, can I speak on that?
I just bringing that up as a clarification point that I want to make sure that, the sheriff's office or our PVA are not going to have undue burden in any way, that sort of we approve this and we're hands off from any responsibility at that point from there on. And that is what you made clear in our energy meeting, but I just wanted to verify here for everyone. Thank you.
Any other questions from the court? Please invite the guests up.
I'll let them introduce themselves.
Good evening, everyone. My name is K.R. Patel. We're doing the Spring Hill Suites by Marriott. So the project itself is an 88 guest room hotel, 4 stories. It'll have a small service bar in there with appetizers and such. Spring Hill Suites is actually one of Marriott's flagship, upper scale hotels. It'll be the first, upper scale hotel in Frankfort, Kentucky. So we're very excited about bringing it. We had started originally planning this back in 2020, like right before COVID hit. So it's been taking a little detour across the way. Finally, we actually just started doing site work about a month ago. We're looking to officially start construction, like putting the building up probably, say, later in May, early June, and tentative opening June next year. But just any sort of preliminary questions, happy to answer them for you all.
I believe he brought a paper that we could pass around that kind of show that, if you don't mind, I think that'd be nice for the court to see.
Yeah.
Kind of some images of what the hotel is gonna look like and things like that.
Beautiful property.
And just make sure the court knows where it is. It's right there in Jet behind that 5-star that had closed a while back. That's where the hotel is.
Just to add to that, actually, we've actually been talking to a gentleman
Out of Louisville, Kentucky, who's actually looking to purchase that property. They're looking to demolish that building and put up 2 restaurants in front of the hotel. So I think that would be a huge value add for us as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions for Mr. Patel?
And I'm just going to jump back in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Staker, but just going to also make sure that everybody's aware is that, with
With
regards to kind of
the capital stack, from the developer side, the senior lender on this project is River City Bank out of Louisville. And another piece that's very critical to, the administration here is that, the senior lenders because the special assessment does hold then a priority position on the property. It does put it above the mortgage in the case of a default or foreclosure. So the River City Bank and the senior lenders do have to provide what we call written consent. That is in the EPAD state legislation. But yeah, River City has also reviewed PACE and was happy to have it as part of the capital stack. But I was just going to say, if you could kind of provide some commentary on how you're looking at PACE from a developer standpoint versus not having PACE in there, especially with the environment of the senior lenders now not.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think after COVID struck, a lot of senior lenders have kind of pulled back on commercial real estate. Inflation costs have gone up with construction. A lot of nervousness, from lender perspective. PACE has really kind of helped fill that gap for us. A lot of these new developments are very energy efficient in ways, like we look at our water heaters, our HVAC, PTAC systems, our door locks. Our integration with Marriott has kind of allowed us to know when a guest is in a room or not with occupancy sensors. The lights will shut off to kind of conserve that energy. And so PACE kind of looks at that and helps us kind of fill that gap, right? Us as property owners, it helps conserve energy, but it's also just good for the environment.
For your air conditioner turns on, some of those things are
Great.
So they'll set
Energy wise, but
usually they'll set them at it depends on how the property owner runs it. But if they're
Smart enough, they'll actually set them at a default temperature, depending on the season, if it's cold or hot outside. But usually during certain hours like bedtime, between like, say, 6 PM and 8 AM, it'll lock it in. So whatever you set it at, it's at that.
Program.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Could I ask you how, this is sort of new for this community and the state in many ways, so I'm wondering from a developer's perspective, how significant this program is. Obviously, your capital stack, it sort of lessens the burden on the primary lender.
Right.
And it's a fairly significant portion of your total
Yes.
development costs. So
Yeah.
could you speak just generally how you think as a developer, how this.
So in terms of capital stack, in the past, we've actually used,
I don't know if you all are familiar with SBA 504. With the government program, our stack has typically been like 65 to 70. A senior lender will do 15 to 20. SBA will do, and then we'll fill in the gap. PACE is kind of taking that void, same way SBA 504 did for us. So in terms of equity stack, it really hasn't changed our development at all. It's just kind of been a replacement for us.
Any other questions? Well, Mr. Patel, I want to say thank you on behalf of the Fiscal Court. I think it's exciting that that this is the first PACE project in Franklin County, and it's all because of the environment being environmentally friendly. So I think that's exciting. So
I appreciate y'all listening. Thank you so much.
absolutely, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Oh, yeah, there's the
Renderings.
You probably have a as well. We can send that back.
That's fine. That's fine. So yeah, I knew you all probably had better things to do to sit through our meeting. So thank you. All righty, next, if it's okay, we have two other guests in the room. I'm going to ask Gil and Keith to come up. They're going to be talking or answering any questions about the bond. So I believe everybody remembers Gil Johnson here.
Third time to charm.
Yeah, he answered most of the questions. I know there was one or two that he referred to Keith there. Keith is with Compass, who actually is the bond lender. So they wanted to both come together just to answer any other questions that the court might have as far as this.
That's correct. I don't know what else to say, except I think there were some questions and comments about the ordinance and what you were doing. The ordinance is merely authorizing financing if you go forward with the projects. It doesn't approve the projects. It's intended to put the mechanism in place. And of course, I think as the judge had commented earlier, we've already secured a good rating at the Moody's level. And, that invoice is now due, and it's going to be a part of a bond issue. You've incurred it anyway. So now's the time to go forward and make that decision on this particular bond issue. So I don't know if there's other questions, but,
Either talk a little bit, because in our supplemental bills is, the price of the bond rating. Can you speak just a little bit on that to the court?
Yeah, so as Gil mentioned, that's usually a cost that's paid through the financing piece. And if the court recalls, this process got started at the end of last year. And so we started that process. And so it's just because the time has gone, right? We haven't issued the debt, the invoices have got to be paid. And then when you subsequently do your financing, then you can reimburse yourselves for that cost. So, but the cost is part of the process to get the rating, and the rating is critical to accessing the capital and lowering your overall borrowing rate. That's why you go through that process. So it's just a little different just because of the timing of how this is all worked out.
a couple of questions. So he may have answered them last week. I mean, it's been a week, I forget quick. If we sell $10 million worth of bonds, bank rated, whatever you call that, and we don't build anything for a year, or we don't have to take a draw on that for a year, can we invest that $10 million and draw interest equal to, or he already said we couldn't arbitrage it for a profit, but can we invest it equal to what we pay?
In the current environment, yeah, it depends on when you're going to spend it and how you structure your investments. But yes, the your borrowing rate is likely going to be lower than what you can invest in U.S. Treasuries currently. Depends on how long, you're looking at it, but that would be part of what we would do in looking at the anticipated draw schedule and then showing you what that looks like. But when we talk about it in general, yeah, that you're basically with that current setup, the cost to carry the money during the construction period is negated, right? So
3 years.
yeah, I mean, it depends on how quickly you're going to spend down the funds. Well, yeah,
That remains to be seen how quickly we hadn't got bids back, we're waiting on something back from them, so that's in the road department. I don't know about our other issue with the parks, so I'd say we're gonna sell those bonds and have that money for a while.
yeah, you're going to earn it. You can, it's
And I don't
county's
wanna
money.
pay whatever percent interest it is. Of course, I know you get some of it back, but we might could get a good investor, maybe, I don't know. Don't look at me, I'm terrible.
No, I mean, from the county's perspective, right, anytime you're investing in county funds, it's the safety of those funds first and foremost, right? So you're limited to treasury securities. As the issuer of taxes and debt, there's a treasury security, it's called a slug. You can buy it directly from the federal government. That's what would be the most conservative, right? So the federal government would have to default on your investment. They have monthly, daily rates that come out. And so you can invest those dollars over a 6-month period or a 1-year period, right, at those rates and lock in those interest income stuff to go towards the projects or to debt service. So again, the money doesn't sit idle, it's invested, it's the county's money, and it accrues to the county accordingly. I don't know if I'm not answering your question fully or. Okay.
But Keith, let me just say this, but part of your service is to manage that.
Yeah.
With us and for us, correct?
Correct. We're not providing the investments, right? There's options, right? You can look at local bank, the sky's the limit in terms of, and it's your choice. You have full discretion over that. Our role is to advise you as to, based on the anticipated schedules, what kind of return expectations can you have and what is current market conditions? And then, we can be part of that execution process if the court chooses, correct? And we've already started kind of modeling up that type of work already. So it's just a matter of kind of finalizing some things and that'll be part of the next steps that we'll go through.
Amy, I know you're sitting over there hiding. Is there anything you want to add to this or share to the court with what you've talked to Keith and Gil about?
Yeah, Keith and I talked, was that today, yesterday?
Yesterday.
He's, provided a lot of information for me, so, and I think you're waiting on some information from me so that we can move forward for the planning.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions from the court? Squire Wisdom.
Yeah, I was wondering, what is our assessed bond rating? If you can tell us and expand on what our position is, or your opinion of the position.
Well, technically, you don't have a public bond rating per se yet because it's not been released to the public. So we'll have to initiate that process again. But we went through what was an indicative process or a private rating process, and it was a very strong rating and came in line with what our models had expected. So we anticipate you to be in that AA category. So if you think of credit strength, AAA is the highest, AA, single A, triple B, and then junk. So you're going to be in that upper echelon is our expectation after we went through that process. And so again, the credit rating is kind of like your bank or credit score, right? The stronger the rating, the lower your cost of funding is, because that's the primary tool used to market the bond offering to investors.
If we front money on some of these projects, way I understood you say that, but I want to make sure I cleared that up in my head. If we get ahead, front money on projects, it's not any trouble to get reimbursed by just simply asking for reimbursement from whoever's controlling that money. the 10 million?
If I understand correctly, the
May
money,
not, my question might not have been very clear, but
the money goes into your account, right? And so it's you have control, it's restricted, right, by this ordinance and so forth. And so you get to direct all activities with it. And so then when you can withdraw the money and spend it directly on the project, or, if there were some costs that were incurred and you wanted to reimburse yourself out of that, that's acceptable as well.
you answered my question. I know it was clear.
It's a preference situation.
The cost going forward.
Correct.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just, I'm wondering about conditions if per se we find a golden pot of revenue somewhere and decide that we want to take out an additional bond for expanded park facilities next year. So can you speak to how taking this amount, if it's $10 million or up to $10 million, would affect in the process of taking additional bondings in the future? And that's vague as can be as well, I'm sorry.
No, I think I understand your question. I mean, in some aspects, it's probably a separate discussion, right? In terms of this debt is issued and the money can be spent as Gil's laid out into the ordinance, which would include preliminary costs on that project. So you would have those monies available for that to the extent that they're not spent on the other things. And I think, so you would then size your second bond issue based on what the need was at that point, less what cash you had on hand, right? And if that's 10 million or whatever number that would be, then we would again go through the process of authorizing it, DLG, et cetera. One of the things that we're doing with this offering though is to structure your total debt service to kind of keep your payments on a level basis, which would then give you flexibility to structure that second deal, accordingly to the goals at that point based on that revenue stream.
And I just want to add to that, Keith, and I think you and Amy have talked about this a lot, but part of what Keith and their company does too is kind of some long-term planning with the county, as little as we want or as much as we want. And that's honestly the reason Amy feels most comfortable going with their company, because of how detailed the presentation was. And as far as, she could give them all the information and they'll ultimately help us kind of look at 20 years down the road and how to pay for things, how to pay things off, just a little bit better vision and strategic planning. So I just wanted to kind of share that with the court too, just to make sure everybody understood that.
And we're getting that part going, and so we'll be working closely here to put together, we call it a long-term financial plan, right? And so a lot of moving parts within that, and so there's going to be a lot of discussion in terms of the assumptions and everything driving that. But that would go along the lines of the revenue streams and so forth, and then obviously the project itself from its cash flow perspective, right? Both from a revenue standpoint and an operating cost standpoint. So we need to factor all that into the next kind of financing piece, such that we can optimize that, limit the budget impact, from a year-over-year basis best we can.
Squire Blackburn.
So, if for some reason we needed to bond within the same year, that would force us into bank qualified. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a 10 million calendar year limitation on the bank qualified.
But if we went beyond that year, it would just start the process like it's done now with the bond rate.
It ends 12/31 of each year.
Right. Okay.
Any other questions? Gil, while you're still here, because I know you have to be somewhere, can you just explain one more time what's in front of us tonight as far as the ordinance and nothing more, nothing less?
Simply, it's just the authorization to proceed with the issuance of general obligation bonds to finance specific projects. I've been very broad about those projects. One is clearly the road maintenance facility. I don't know what you all refer to it as. There is a fire truck in there, but you have to make that decision. And then you can do the park project and you can do other capital projects that are approved by the fiscal court. So my emphasis again is this is not an approval of any particular process. You still have to go through that, but you need to go ahead and put, in my opinion, the financing together. This authorizes you to do that. It takes the second step, and the third step is Department of Local Government. They have to sign in and approve. That process we've already, as I said last time, I think we have a hearing date established. Then once that's approved, then we'll proceed through the process. We'll put out the documents that I've prepared and he's reviewed that are the preliminary official statement, and that's the offering document that you put out.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions for these two gentlemen leave us? Keith Gill, thank you very much for being with us tonight and answering our questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you, guys. Alrighty, next we are gonna have KCDC success stories, and Terry Bradshaw is with us tonight. How are you doing, Terry?
Good, you'll have a quick look
Does
at
Andrew just put it up there?
Just listen, so.
He does?
Yeah.
And I'd give him a sign?
Yeah, it's
Like,
there.
Oh, there you go, Andrew. Job so far. So I started, I sent some things to Kim and she's given those to you in your packet. I want to apologize. The first two screens are just an outline of our strategic plan. I started preparing for this and I realized it was a whole lot of words and I didn't want you to be here all night. So I wanted to just kind of put it in front of you on the screen, and I'll go quickly through this, but I just want there to be some gauge as to what we are supposed to be doing at KCDC anyway. And currently what we use is the existing strategic, Franklin County Economic Development Strategic Plan. So if you'll look at goal number 1,
No, I'm not a serious person. You're serious.
Yes, you can.
Do you like questions during the program, or do you want everybody to hold?
It's fine with me. You want to ask them during?
So as she's going through her presentation, then if y'all have questions, okay, I just wanted, in all
No,
seriousness,
that's fine.
lay that out, because some presenters like it one way or the
I don't
other.
care. Either one is fine. No, Sherry, that's what I just said. This isn't in your packet.
Okay.
I added this outline at the last second because I didn't want to say all these words to you, so I just wanted to see it in front of you. Yeah, that's what this is.
All right, thank you.
So goal number 1, ensure infrastructure and land building supply supports continued economic development. So the things listed under there are some of the programs and initiatives that we have currently that address goal number 1. Obviously, the Duncan Road site, thank you all very much for the time you spent on that. We have 4 active projects on that site as of now, as of about 3 hours ago, as a matter of fact. So that is valuable to us. I'm working with the judge currently on the PDI grant in hopes that we can get some funding to develop some more industrial property. Obviously, I serve on the Comp Plan Advisory Committee, and we address the need for industrial property issue regularly on that committee. We do have CDBG and revolving loans that we have with Limewater, Locals, Siglusher. We just closed out this past year, Bluegrass Community Action Partnership loan, as well as West 6. All those loans were for property or building development, but it has to be used for something that cannot be moved, so it can't be for inventory or most equipment. Infill projects, we do work with a number of infill projects. A couple of those, Limewater, Local, Sig, actually West, all but West 6 were infill projects, as well as Bourbon 30, the Daniel Boone Distillery, the Meeting House, the Mason Hogue Building, the Simon Warehouse, the Sauer Building, River Row. Oh, Chad's the insurance building. So we have a lot of projects that we're in the midst of now that are infill projects. We are partners in the Regional Economic Development Strategy, and there is a product development component in that. We look at opportunities. That's a 9-county region. We're not the only county that is stretched for industrial property. So we also look at opportunities for communities to
partner in industrial parks. So maybe if we don't have industrial property in Franklin County, we can partner with our neighbors and build a regional industrial park so that we can benefit from that. Our citizens can benefit from the jobs there without actually having the land available. And then I serve on a number of boards and committees that look at regional as well as local land development. And then we have a lot of incentives that we use as tools to promote development as well. The brownfield funding through the city, we have a project going on Myrtle Avenue, a cleanup there. The Opportunity Zone, we have about 4 projects who use that financing. The city and county property tax abatements, we have seen more activities with those in the past 6 months than we have seen in the past several years. So I think that is partially because we try to get that message out there that those are available, and a lot because we see a lot of development happening. And then, of course, the EPAD program that you just discussed, as well as there is another $100 million. I mentioned the PDI funding earlier, but there's still an additional $100 million that was allotted by the legislature and the governor for mega projects. So if we were to get a mega project interested in Franklin County, there's that funding as well. Goal number 2 is provide a vibrant labor force. So this is just workforce development. We provide, and this takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of time because the second you get finished with it, it's obsolete. Somebody took a new job somewhere, but it is valuable, not both to our businesses and our schools. We have a repository of workforce services and contacts. So if you have an employee who can't get to work, we have a name and a contact for somebody who can help them get a car or somebody who can help them get a ride to work. If you have an employee who needs work boots, we have a name and a contact. Reach out to those folks. And so if you have a workforce need, we truly have a person for you to talk to get that need addressed. We do have a business retention and expansion program. We stay in contact with our existing businesses regularly to see what they need. We do not try to invent programs, then convince our businesses that they're good programs and they should use them. We listen to what the businesses say, and then we try to initiate activities that will help them with what they need. So that is part of that business retention and expansion program. As I hope you've heard me talk about at some point, we are starting a new youth leadership program. It's a regional program. It's sponsored by the Bluegrass College Academy, which is a 2-year college associate's degree that juniors and seniors can receive. We have 10 students from Franklin County, one of the schools in Franklin County, 12 from Anderson County, and 8 from Woodford County. I believe that's the breakdown. And we are on Fridays, that will be a leadership program that not only teaches leadership skills like you would see in a regular leadership program, but it also helps them transition to a post-secondary life, whether that's work, whether it's more college, whether it's certification. But it helps them recognize that there's got to be something there after they get out of high school. It has a career exploration component, and that career exploration is done within this region. So we are encouraging those students to explore career opportunities within our 3 counties so that they're not looking in some other area to work when we have jobs available within the career field that they've chosen. And that starts in August. Yes, sir.
You said one county student?
No, 10 Franklin. 10. I don't know if they're Franklin County.
I don't know if they're Western Hills. I don't know if they're Frankfort Independent, but they are within Franklin County 10. Workforce grants. We have a number of workforce grants that we
have received over the last year or 2. We did receive some funding for that youth leadership program through a grant. We have a First New Friend grant that we started that program with. Empower Frankfort, we got a grant for that. And then, of course, we have a very large cybersecurity grant that we are implementing. We have lots of partnerships with the local schools. I won't even give you that list. It's endless. Every day it's something new and exciting with them. the workforce recruitment and talent retention programs are also within the regional strategy. I know you've heard me talk about the regional strategy, and workforce and talent recruitment are a large part of that. We're working with a consultant to look at some creative ways to attract talent, and especially using tourism to attract talent, which has got some interesting data that I'd be happy to share with you guys if you want it. And then housing strategy. If we're going to attract all this talent, we have to have houses for them to live in. And the city and county are partnering in a housing study. I don't think anybody's going to be surprised when we get it back and they go, gosh, we need some housing. No kidding. Right. So the question is, after we find out what kind of housing we need, how are we going to strategize building that housing, and how will we incentivize that? So I'm working with a group of local developers now to look at potential ways that we can incentivize that housing growth once we find out exactly what kind of housing growth we need. Felt like Scotty was getting ready to ask me something.
Question, and maybe you're going to get to it, maybe it's not something you deal with. I'm new with this. What I hear constantly is, I want to go to work, I don't have any childcare, and we can't find childcare. And I know that that's accurate because I call childcare facilities
It is
all day long.
most certainly accurate. It absolutely is.
So what are we doing about that?
Well,
what do we do about that?
There is new childcare funding that is available to the employer to benefit the employee. So that was legislation that was passed in the last session. And we have a couple of manufacturers who are considering that. We also try to work with, I've actually worked 3 childcare projects, and I'm not trashing anybody. I'm just saying this is how this works. I've worked 3 childcare projects over the last year because we are desperate for childcare. And as we worked through the process, it was so filled with regulations, and it just became overwhelming to these people. And they finally were just like, forget it, I just can't do it. And we've got to figure out, those are not local regulations. So we can't do anything except for advocate on the other end of that, which is what we try to do. And we did advocate for that childcare funding from the legislature, but we still have to convince our local businesses, our local employers, that it is a good program. And when you start dealing with people's children, the liability is so strong that they shy away from that. So it's going to take some education and encouragement and maybe incentives along the way to get that done. But I think truly getting new employees will be incentive enough once the employers can get their arms around how they make that work legally. And then goal number 3, build a more welcoming and supportive climate for economic development. We started the DIG program, and they are going to do a summer series that will host the downtown developers throughout the summer and discuss barriers that they ran into during their development, how they would suggest that we mitigate those barriers, what we could do better. We also try to recognize our local businesses for what they've done for the investment that they've made in the community. And then we have a number of business and development advocacy programs and partners. And then we show off our community. We are hosting Asheville will be here in a few weeks to talk to us about our regional strategy. We had a group from Harrodsburg come up a few weeks ago, look at downtown development in River Row. I went to Shelbyville to speak to their leadership group about the things that we have going on. So we like to brag about what we have going on, and we do that as often as somebody will listen to us. Sometimes they don't listen, but we do it anyway. And then goal number 4, increase target marketing of Frankfort and Franklin County as a desirable place for industrial and commercial location. We don't have a big budget for marketing, so we are going to depend on that regional development strategy. It has a huge marketing component as we develop our region as a whole. We do some free earned media there that I have listed. And then number 5, continue to encourage quality of life improvements in the community. I'm going to be honest with you. that's a goal, and continue to encourage. I mean, what are we going to do? Say, heck no, we don't want quality of life here. So that's kind of all over the place. And we, of course, help, we sponsor Bourbon on the Banks and do a variety of things as far as quality of life goes. But we would obviously encourage all quality of life improvements. And then Assure KCDC has the resources and organizational capacity to promote economic development. We stay within our budget every year and continue to do all these things. So the result of these, which is really what you want to hear about, is Andrew, you can flip that page now. This is a list of projects we've completed or announced in 22-23 that KCDC has worked. There are other projects within this community, I promise you, that have happened. But these are the ones that we have worked over the last few years. We have probably 30 new projects that we are, in addition to these, that they have not announced or completed. It's been a busy week. I've had 5 new projects this week alone, and it's Thursday. So they come in fits and starts, and this was a busy one. On the next page, oh yeah, I hope it's bigger on that screen or I'm not going to be able to see it. On the next page, the judge asked me to, nope, I can't see that either. The judge asked me to give you some data about what jobs were created, where those jobs were created, what industry. So if you'll look at this chart, what you can see, hopefully your copy that you have in front of you is a little easier to see. You'll look at the red in the document. Are yours in color?
Yeah.
They are. Okay, good.
Red. And all red numbers. I got you.
You got it? Okay. I was like, doggone it.
Tiny red numbers.
Sorry, yeah, tiny red numbers. So you'll see the jobs were lost. Sorry.
Only 2 less. Okay.
Tiny red numbers.
They're teeny tiny.
Yeah, so jobs lost were in accommodations, food service, retail, and information. We kind of anticipated all those. You can't watch TV today that you don't see information world laying off folks. It's not because IT's going away. It's not because we're going to stop using computers. It is because we overbuilt that economy, and now we're trying to level off. The other ones, I don't think, again, any of those industries are going away or downsizing. I think that we are having trouble filling some positions that are in those, and we will have to address those in some way in the future. You'll look at the largest decline by far outside of those private sector jobs was government jobs. Now, these are Franklin County numbers. These are not just random numbers from anywhere. These are Franklin County numbers. And we lost over 1,500 jobs since 2015. And I just started keeping this data when I got here. So there's probably more to that. 1,500 government jobs since 2015. So,
So does that mean like they're working home in another county, or just jobs were eliminated?
Jobs were eliminated.
Thank you.
These numbers are jobs that exist in Franklin County. They're not people from Franklin County who work these jobs. And it's very hard sometimes to recognize data when you see it because those numbers are very different. There are 25, this is off the top of my head, so these are not going to be exact, but there are about 30,000 jobs in Franklin County, but there are about 25,000 people in Franklin County who live in Franklin County who have jobs, okay? So you see when you're looking at the data, it's very confusing. But these numbers are jobs that exist within Franklin County.
Terry, can I ask,
Sure.
I don't see reflected here anywhere, we all know that the state has been laying off for many years and dissolving positions, but they're having an uptick in contractual temp otherwise.
Well,
Are you
that's
tracking
probably
that anywhere?
That's probably where you see the numbers in, you'll see professional and scientific services. Maybe some of the admin jobs, probably not too many of the admin jobs. But my guess would be most of those would be in those professional and scientific services jobs that went up 350.
You don't have any references. I'm wondering if you could.
So where you get all your information as you go through the
This
projects.
is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is, that is not true. that's not correct. This is from KY Stats. And this comes from unemployment insurance reports. I didn't make this chart. I literally copied and pasted it onto here.
So that just makes me think that those temp jobs that are really not technically, full-time jobs that aren't counted as such might not be reflected whatsoever. We
May
have
not. They
a
may
hint
work
of-
through a temp agency that's not even located in Franklin
Right.
County, which would not reflect there. I will call your attention to the fact this is only through the end of 2021. These numbers are always delayed because of the way they collect them. But normally it's 3/4 delay. I don't know why there's such a delay right now, but I just pulled these 2 or 3 days ago. So I don't know what the holdup is, but I would anticipate that those numbers have continued to rise throughout 2022 or 23. And then on the next page, I just wanted you to see that not only are the job numbers growing in the private sector, but also are the salaries are growing. Andrew. Thank you. So you'll see, I'm sorry. This is the private sector jobs as opposed to the public sector jobs. So you'll see since 2015, private sector, the overall job numbers have gone up 886 total jobs since 2015. But you had a decrease of 1,533 state government jobs. So the increase in the private sector jobs since 2015 is 2,430. And that's a pretty substantial number of jobs created by the private sector. On the next page, I wanted you just to see the salaries of those as well. And you'll see there that obviously all the salaries increased, heaven forbid that not happen. But you'll notice that the salaries that increase the highest percentage, not the highest dollar number, the highest percentage, no, I take that back. The highest paying jobs are in finance, healthcare, IT, companies management, manufacturing, professional and technical services, utilities, and wholesale trade. Then the highest increase in pay over that time period, also construction, finance, healthcare, IT, company management. Company management, that's managing a company, a manufacturer, went up 93% in 8 years. Manufacturing up 38%, professional and technical services up 38%. Healthcare was up 42%. Government was only up 12%. Again, sir.
Quick question, do you have a breakdown of the percentages? Because I think a lot of it's probably inflated over the last couple of years. People have been forced to pay more since COVID. They've been forced to pay more.
Exactly.
So
Correct.
do you have a breakdown, say from 2015 to 2016? Did it go up 0.5%?
I don't have a breakdown, but I can pull the chart and
Yeah.
break it down.
Yeah.
They don't provide percentages, so I just did these on my own, and I can do that, yes.
Okay.
Do you want me to do that for you?
Yeah, I think it'd be more telling. Obviously, if you go 5 years and you only get 1% compared to the last 3 years, and people they were forced to pay more.
Correct.
To get help.
Mhm.
I think it's telling.
And I think we'll see that continue to go up.
Yeah.
Because of that
Yeah.
very thing.
If I can on that, I'd really like to have you share the links for all of the information where you've gathered this, because there's many components here. As you're speaking, I'm thinking about inflation and adjusted cost bases and census data. That a lot of cross-referencing needs to be done here to look at a broader spectrum.
All that came from KY Stats. This came from KY Stats as well.
Okay.
But I'll provide you that link. And then the last page, I think, is it the last page? Let's hope so. The Franklin County Occupational Tax Revenue. This is one of the gauges that we use to see if we're heading in the right direction. You'll see that is an increase of $1.9 million in tax revenue since 2015. And that is about a 54% increase in the last 8 years. That was the last page.
I got a question, but actually from when you started. I thought
It's
I'd wait.
already now.
Go ahead.
You talked briefly about a regional industrial cooperation. Has that discussion gone to a regional development park or not? Or is there any interlocal agreements with any other counties that if we share any industry, we share the money, or what? Or where has that gone? Is that just in conversation so far?
Well, it's further than conversation. We are looking at properties, speaking to property owners, trying to get a large enough allotment of land together to make it a viable, what we would call a mega site.
Well, I have, not an economist, but back in Paul Patton days, we built regional industrial development parks all over the state.
Yes, we did.
And there's some of them been filled, some of them not very successful, but
Correct.
some of them are. But now first of all, you gotta have the property, and then you gotta have some kind of agreement with everybody that's involved in that.
That is correct.
But you're going down that road to look for that.
We are. We're working with our partners in neighboring counties. And you want to talk about that in closed session sometime?
Yeah, we can. We can bring everybody up to speed. I mean, right now, the conversation is being had to see what's feasible and what's not feasible as far as utilities, things like that. But I don't know if we're there yet.
Well, they could, I wouldn't be, I'm sure you've already checked all this out, but I mean, to build an industrial park, but in a county or set cross lines or whatever it is, you do have to have the infrastructure there, and all that's going to come with a grant from somebody.
That is correct. So here's the process we kind of went through. Find property that we thought would work well. Talk to the property owners to be sure that they would at least have a conversation with us. Talk to our utilities folks first, at the same time, to be sure that we had the ability to provide all the utilities necessary to this particular site. So gas, water, sewer, electric, okay? At a capacity that would support an industrial area of a large size. We've talked to all those folks. We have confirmed we have the ability to get all the infrastructure that's necessary to the property we're discussing at this point. And now we are just waiting to have some more conversations with property owners, see if they're willing to sell the property, see if we are see what they're asking for the property. We are considering applying for this PDI money that I mentioned earlier as a regional project as opposed to an individual county project. We can qualify for a little additional funding for that, so that's part of this partnership. And we have spoken to the other communities within the partnership about potential ways that we would agree to divvy up the responsibility, the cost, the benefits. All that's in conversation.
Okay, good. Nothing else.
I don't.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Terry, quick question, like, if Andrew, if you can go back to the occupational tax revenue increase page, please.
Just a
second.
Thank you.
On the sheet, it's like on 2015, it shows 3.5, and then you get up to 18, 19, it shows 4.6, so about $1.1 million. And then from 20 to 22, it's about 700,000, close to $1 million. Do you feel like that increase in those 3 years is all because of the rates or the salaries being forced to go up? Or do you feel like that's growth?
It's probably a combination of both. And I would say that because, I don't know. That's a great question, and I can't tell you that. Well, when I do the percentages for you, I can do job increases by year too, so we'll be able to tell a little more whether that was job numbers increased equally with salaries, or there was a discrepancy there. I won't guess it, I'll hold the numbers for you.
It'd be the average increase across the board.
Well, and it, you know, partially it was pandemic related that we got so many more, that people got substantial raises or more income, but it is also because of a workforce shortage, and that's not going away anytime soon. And so, as I mentioned earlier, I don't anticipate that salaries are going down anytime. They are going to continue to rise to get workforce. Yeah, I don't either.
Sebastian.
I was just gonna say, and I think these occupational tax numbers demonstrate and include part-time positions, not 100% full-time positions only.
I don't know the answer to that. I get those from your all's.
That's the
from
case.
cities
Anybody
and
working
areas.
a part-time
Yeah, that's
job
anybody
is-
there. That's total
Anybody,
occupational
that's
tax.
total occupation. I just want everybody to understand that these are not necessarily based on 100. That's not, because, you know, like I think Squire Tracy was talking about, you know, there are, and I'll use an example, when McDonald's is hiring for $15 to $17 an hour,
Yeah.
that raises the scale for everyone else to bring other
That's
people in.
exactly right.
So, you know, that rising sea is gonna take all boats,
Mm-hmm.
you know, at a higher level, so, you know, that's just a critical factor, I think, to address what you were asking.
I hear it every day with students. I'm quitting here, I'm going here because I can get
Yes.
$2 more an hour.
And they'll stay for 2 weeks
So
and then go somewhere else.
that company's gonna get filled up, this one's gonna be needing, and it's market driven, but
Yeah, and when we make, I mean, and it's that way in every industry, whether it's the restaurant industry or the manufacturing industry. If I recruit a company that needs 400 employees, that they're like, 200
coming
of
from
them
somewhere.
are likely to come from other manufacturers we have. That's exactly right. So we have to be sure as we recruit those new industries that they pay more than at least, you know, at least what we're our employees are getting now. And that's a whole strategy, you know, that is.
it's recruitment. It's not just saying,
That's
here's a piece of
exactly
land.
right. Yeah.
We wanna
Please
recruit.
come here. Yeah. 25, 30 years ago, when I started in this world, you know, we chased every job that was available. And now, it breaks my heart, but sometimes we just have to, you know, we would never turn a company away, but we have to look at how we incentivize those jobs. And if they don't add value to the jobs we already have, we're gonna have a problem filling them.
Right.
Squire Whisper.
Yeah, Terry, we're kind of getting caught in the weeds of performance of our county, really, through occupational tax, and I'm struggling, but there would seem to be a total disconnect between your organization and what this performance is, unless, do you track jobs directly and income based on the projects that you've helped assist with? You know, we have a lot of projects here, and I've helped in a dozen of them in some form or fashion. Do you keep those kind of numbers? Do you have that kind of tracking ability?
I'm not
Or
sure I
reporting
understand the
requests?
question, so let me just try to work with. So we have the ability to perform an economic impact study for every project that we have. So I can pull up LimeWire, and it, there's a formula within the system. I didn't write it. We had a professor that used to work for the University of Louisville do these economic impact formulas for us. But I can put in the numbers, number of employees, what kind of what NAICS code it is, what they pay, if they're in the city or the county, so we can determine what the rate of occupational tax is. We enter the data from each project, and it tells us what that economic impact is. We can do that for every project, yes.
But we don't have any of that in your presentation tonight. That's sort of what I was expecting to see more so, was direct impact and success stories of sorts, you know, sort of review of some of these more recent, particularly the 5 that have been given loan funds in recent years.
I have those already prepared. I gave them in a fiscal court meeting last 2 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can, yes, sir.
Is that something you can email?
Can I email those?
You
You want me to
email
run
form?
one for every project?
Well, I don't know. Squire Whisper, you just want the 5 that we have loans on?
At minimum, I mean, I'm really, you know, we're hitting a a hard time. Obviously, we've got some bourbon revenue that's gonna be going away. We have a shortfall coming up in this budget of 2.5 million, potentially. My mind is sort of going to strategic investments, and as a community, what us as an elected body, KCDC has a lot of goals here that in many ways I feel like reflect my own goals as an elected official. But we need to see better how to navigate the future that's coming before us and where we make strategic investments. Maybe that is, throwing all of our eggs into that bourbon egg basket, although I doubt that's it. And I'm hoping that we can see some data that will help us sort of reflect and strategize about where we go in the future. If that's more industrial sites, as you're speaking about, or otherwise. I'm just wondering what kind of additional data is available, and maybe that is a sort of an assessment of all the projects that we have. I mean, there's 2 or 3 on this list of 2022, 2023 that are bourbon related. There are a dozen that are historic properties that have other incentives available. There are a few hospitality type of projects. I'm sort of struggling wanting that information, I suppose, on where we strategically look to invest our dollars and or make directives of our partners like KCDC in what areas we want you to focus.
Okay, so tell me, just so I'm clear, do you want me to just send you the 5 economic impact studies for those projects that we funded, or do you want me to try to run them for all these?
That would be a good place to start. I kind of think I would like to look at the last several years, particularly since the pandemic started, sort of where the performances are coming from, right? So maybe we have a targeted list of themed projects that have returns over a certain amount or something. But otherwise, everything would be great. I'm always for more information.
Yeah, me too. I'm just saying it takes a lot of time
I
to enter
realize
this,
that.
so if you don't need it tomorrow, we have a problem, but I can eventually get it.
I'm thinking the 5 that have some actual community dollars invested in them. I'd like to see the performance of those immediately. Then we can negotiate.
That might help.
The others.
That might help recruitment.
Yeah.
How we drive recruitment. Focus it more. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to have some of these that are going to work out superb and wonderfully, and some of them probably do as well, but the economic driver that they've created is less. So it might help us in our recruitment. Does that make sense?
Probably 12, 15 projects that I've already run economic impact studies on and presented those before. I'm just gonna send you all those because I have those immediately, okay?
Sure.
And then if you want other projects, I can run those as we come to them. Will that be all right?
And I'd like to somehow understand too incentives that have been associated with each of these. Like I said, of course, me and the historic buildings, I know that there's some tax incentives multiple times that have driven some of these renovations and some of the developments that have been in them. I'm wondering what other things that our community is using besides our own local incentives.
Yeah, so I will not be able to tell you all of those. I mean, I can tell you which ones used Opportunity Zone. I can tell you which ones used brownfield funds. I can tell you obviously which ones used our tax abatements, state tax incentives, our tax incentives that are required to match the state incentives. I can give you some of those, but I would, historical dollars, I'm sure you have more access to that than I do. So there will be some incentive programs that I won't have the ability, probably you all would have more ability to do that than me.
I mean, this is an important meeting. The PACE program, sort of my question to them was how critical is that? Is that maybe it feels like that particularly is now a state incentive that's taking place of a formerly federal incentive that we may be able to manipulate because it targets more locally somehow. Maybe that's why there's preferred
well, and
use of that.
I can tell you, he didn't. Another project that we're working with the PACE incentive on, it's a huge driver in the project. I mean, a very large number of financing that they'll be doing through the PACE project, and realistically, the project may not have worked without this. May not work without this PACE funding. So it is a big deal for a number of projects.
Yeah. Can advance 600,000 out of 3 is pretty good
Yeah.
carrot.
Any other questions for our Tracy?
On one of your slides, goal 2 was, goal 2 referenced training. Can you
Andrew, can you go back to goal 2, please?
goals page?
It's the second page, Andrew. Nope, it's the the second page. One more. I'm counting yeah, there you go.
So goal 2, can you give us an example of some of the training that's currently taking place that will help provide that vibrant labor force that you referenced on this sheet?
So hang on a minute, I have a list here that I didn't read you, of course. That was the one you asked me. Oh, yeah. Everything's so tiny. Let's see. So, the training programs, yeah, sorry, here they are. So we have, of course, the cybersecurity training that I mentioned earlier, the grant that we received. And then we work with a number of local employers who have apprenticeship programs that we recruit, especially high school students, into those programs, but adults as well. AE Electrical Solutions has a phenomenon. I think I even brought that to you all maybe a couple of years ago, presented it to the Fiscal Court, but it is a phenomenal program that they, when they built their new building, they literally said, you know, we've got to figure out a way we can train our own staff. Built a classroom and a lab there in their facility. They train folks 2 days in the lab classroom, 3 days they work. When they get finished with this training program, they are prepared to take their journeyman's test and then continue to work as full-time employees. They are paid through that process. Topi has a similar program. Nashville Wire. We work with Commonwealth Coders, which is a work from home IT training similar to the cybersecurity training that we'll be doing as well. Meritor has an apprenticeship program within their facility. All these programs don't train the same thing. Obviously, they train to be skilled to work there, but we have a number of programs who train industrial maintenance folks, and we are always desperate for industrial maintenance people in every facility we have. The hospital also has their own internal workforce training program, as well as Green Hack. We have a number I failed to mention this, I'm sorry, we have a couple of child care facilities who also, these are all state certified apprenticeship programs. So they do their own apprenticeship within the facilities as well.
How can we help spread the word? Do we have that information? How can we help spread that word?
I can share that information
please.
with you.
Is that something we can help get out?
But that is on that workforce list, so that I provide to the high schools. Charles and Shane are on speed dial on my phone. I talk to them more than I do my kids probably. And they are aware of that, but sure, I'll be happy to give you some information about that.
Please.
I agree with you. The thing that I believe, and I came from the Workforce Development Cabinet, and as I prepared this document of all the opportunities and workforce that we have out there, the list is endless. I mean, it's probably 8 pages of single-spaced. And it's just getting the word to the right people that is such a time-consuming, or it is time-consuming, but it also, there's just no rhyme or reason to how to get it out there. So for me, the visual learner, I needed it on paper so that if somebody called and said, I've got a worker who can't get to work and he's really good and I've got to figure out a way to help him, I know either to call to get him a car donated through Goodwill or to call Bluegrass Community Action Partnership and get him a ride, you know. But it would be far better, we'd be far more effective if we had the ability for all these folks to know this on the front end and not have to call me to ask.
Just a couple more. Looking over the projects completed or announced, and knowing that the city has went out and hired their own consultant to identify and recruit business. It seems to me that there are a lot of these that are just like a duplication or shouldn't be under the industrial umbrella. knowing, again, that they've got their own person that's recruiting them. Is that something that you're trying to work on? What's the plan to get that where it should go instead of under your umbrella?
Well, that's a great question, and I might not have a very good answer for you, and this is how I work. Let me give you some background. So if you'll recall, and you may not remember this was about 4 years ago, the DFI board came to KCDC and said, we don't have the skills, we don't have the staff to do economic development downtown. Can you help us? My board said, Terry, can you help them? At the time, I had a full-time person and a part-time person. And I said, yeah, we're really actually doing it already anyway, so that's not a problem. We did literally go out and recruit businesses. We did a number of mailers, a variety of things to try to recruit businesses to downtown. When I lost my staff, I don't have enough hours in the day, so I don't anymore spend time actually going out and trying to, not cold call, but kind of sort of cold call for projects that are downtown. But I do answer the phone. I do answer the phone every single time it rings, and I do try to help the people who call and ask me. And so if there are any of those projects that you see on the list, it is because they reached out to me, not because I started building those projects. So yes, I would love to have some help because this is, it's 60, 70 hours a week, all on call all the time. But until that happens, I'll answer the phone.
So like, let's say you get a phone call and you know that this is what it pertains to. Is that not something that you can say, contact the city of Frankfort, ask for so-and-so, and this person will get you where you need to be?
So you're saying not answer the call?
No, answer the call.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's what I do.
Yeah, and then once you realize, hey, this should not be under my umbrella. Unfortunately, they withdrew from the Main Street program, which kind of sounds like to me that they were probably doing everything they asked you to do, which really, and more, but it doesn't make much sense to me why they did. But
yeah, I don't think they were, and I think that only because they did not have the staff with the skill set or the staff numbers to do that. I realized that was one of the 4 pillars of the Main Street program, but I think that was part of the reason, and again, I'm not speaking for DFI, so please don't assume that. But I think that was one of the reasons, is there were so many responsibilities, the 4 pillars under the Main Street program, and they didn't have the staff to cover those 4 pillars. You have to understand economic development, you have to understand the organization itself, the Main Street program. You have to understand, Eric, you'll know this better than I, architecture, was that one of the 4 pillars? And then events. And they had one person who didn't have those 4 skill sets, all 4 of them. I think that's kind of why they did it. They didn't feel like they were able to fulfill the 4 pillars. Did I get those 4 right?
Effectively, but I think that the infrastructure of Main Street programs are not to have a staff with those, is to build committees of your community with those skill levels, and you have a staff member who organizes people, and that is the intent of the program, is to make the best out of who exists in your community. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Last question on this list is Castle and Key. And it says bourbon distilling, sewer expansion, and warehousing. Knowing that Castle and Key pays no property tax to Franklin County. Franklin County doesn't really get anything off of Castle and Key. Why would we put energy and effort into, unless they're coming here, we're gonna lose the bourbon barrel tax, so.
Well, so part of that.
So why would we spend a lot of effort and energy in that?
That they were looking at property here for bourbon warehousing. The other part of that was, we had a project, and I think it's okay if I talk about this now, that project is going somewhere else, but we had a project that was, we were down to the final 2 sites that was gonna locate on the 690 Duncan Road property. And that project was locating in Frankfort because we had built a partnership with Castle and Key.
It was a biomass company, and they were going to use the mash from the bourbon, from Castle and Key, and run a sewer line up from Castle and Key to this facility on Duncan Road that would, maybe not a sewer line. I think it was gonna be parallel to the sewer line, but this line would have allowed them to pump up that sludge or whatever is the proper word to this facility. They would use what they needed to produce their product, and then the rest would go into the sewer system, as opposed to Castle and Key having to pay to haul it off, or Castle and Key running it through the sewer system. So they were actually, we worked with them because they were associated with projects that were going to be in this county.
Thank you.
Is the other project they've got going on, is that right across the county line, or is that in Franklin County?
You're talking about the warehouses now?
No, not the warehouse.
60, you're talking about on
It's in Wicker
60.
County.
It's on
It's
Wicker
across the
County.
line.
It's across the line.
That one is across
Yeah.
the line.
Robert, can you have a question?
Yeah, Judge, I guess, Terry, could you sort of, in looking at your goals and policies, it seems exponentially broad and encompassing of almost every aspect in our community.
Amen.
But could you talk about your relationship with, or what you think your relationship should be with the city and the county, the elected bodies? Yeah, just to start.
Yeah, so this is not my strategy, first of all. This is the city and county strategy. It was voted on, it was developed in 2013. There was a consultant who came, I have a name, but I don't remember it, I apologize. But this strategy was developed before I took the job. It was intended to be a 10-year strategy. In 2019, I asked for funding to update the strategy because of the change in workforce. I felt like was so big from what we had planned in 2013 that we needed to relook at we needed to update the strategy. We didn't get that funding, but it is very broad. But if you look at the booklet that was delivered, the deliverable from that original strategy, there are partners assigned to each of there are action items under each goal, and there are partners assigned to each of these. Those partners consist of the city, the county, the Chamber of Commerce, DFI, tourism. I feel like I'm missing one, but yeah, this is not Terry Bradshaw's to do on her own. This was a community plan and requires community partners.
Is the plant board a part of that?
That might be the other one. That in the infrastructure section, I believe actually Frankfurt Plant Board is a part of that, yes.
Does the plant board help finance you and your board at all?
No.
And they probably benefit more than anyone, correct? Interesting.
As a follow-up to that, I remember this, and it's obviously high time that we reevaluate. 10 years, the world changed 3 years ago. Given your statements of your hours invested per week, you know, my preference as one of the elected officials of the community would be to see other partners taking on more of the initiative, and our economic development industrial authority more focused on those individual projects. It would seem to be you have very few minutes to dedicate to most of these things that are coming through your office. Could you speak a little bit to the amount of time you're able to give to individual actual economic development, physical structure?
Every day, right, every day I have a plan, and every day by 8:10, that plan is going to crap. Yeah, exactly. You know, the phone rings, and yesterday I got a call from the Cabinet for Economic Development. We had a project coming to town today at 2 o'clock. I had another meeting today at 2 o'clock. I had to change that around. I got there at 2 o'clock. I thought I would be finished by 3 o'clock. It was after 3:30. I had to change another meeting. It's like that every day. So every day I have to reprioritize what's most important in that day. who needs something yesterday, get that to them first, and then move on to the next project.
Well, you know, I'm just, as you're reflecting this, I remember seeing this list and seeing those players on it before and thinking initially when I first saw it that it's not encompassing those many of our partners in the community who should be at the table. Some of those partners are no longer the viable entities they might have once been because of those community connections or networks. Let's say BFI doesn't have their 4 pillars and the volunteers to go into each one of those, which used to be 100 people or so. I'm sort of, in my opinion, the world changed a few years ago, and it's now upon us to consider what our future is for investment in economic development. We need to define it for our community, and we need to assess how we're going to go forward. And in my opinion, there's nothing holy currently in the organizations or people that we need to continue to do what we've been doing. So obviously a decade since this goal list has been developed, it's high time we reconsider. But I'm purposely sort of asking in my assumption or my feeling, there are many projects going on out in the community all the time that never engage the elected bodies. Formerly on the city commission for a couple of years and now here, and I'm not feeling that the economic development agency really works with us as a resource in the community. I'm wondering what we can do better to work directly with you, because we are the eyes and ears and boots on the ground often. We know all the players in our community. How can we do a better job at working together, I suppose?
Yeah, so I would say that's not correct. I work with city and county staff all day, every day. I don't work with elected officials. Those aren't the people who can actually answer my questions, honestly. But you can ask Robert. He hears from me a lot more than he wants to. Eric, there is not a day. I would say there is almost never a day that goes by that I don't work with city or county staff on a project.
That wasn't really my question. Was more what can we do? What can we do as the elected bodies to short of throwing money at a problem to see better results or see reevaluate our goals and priorities, I suppose, is where we should start, right?
Well, I would say, number one, and I've seen such a move in this direction, but I think that sending the message that we are open for business, we want business growth here, I think that's huge for all of us, not just elected bodies, but all of us. The judge has asked that I provide him a list of potential ways that we can incentivize the type of projects that we want, whether it's a local development area that we want to incentivize growth in, and I'll work on that list and get it to him. The thing, my board wanted me to provide them a number of ways we can option property and get property available for land development. And the problem with that is the answer is there are a million options for options, and there are a million ways you can incentivize projects, and they're all very project specific. If JW has a project that he wants, the thing that makes him want to be here and makes it easier for him to get a return on investment is completely different than Sherry's. And so you have to, while there's this big list in the sky of potential projects or, potential incentives or potential ways to gain access to land, that every single time you go to do it, it's a different strategy because you're working with a different company or a different property owner or whatever.
Well, I'll have to refute or rebuke something there. You say that I keep hearing in this community, and it really kind of just ticks me off, that we weren't open for business before. I don't think that's the case. I think everyone in this community wants to see a vibrant community with good investment and good opportunities and good jobs. What we have not defined and what we all disagree about is how we get there and what type of businesses, what type of opportunities we develop. You ask anyone in this community and they're going to define it 1,000 different ways, And that's where I see the shortfall of government has been so far, is not defining what we are best assessed to do, what kind of land we have, what kind of resources or people. We've not evaluated any of that. And really, you know, that in my mind is the role of KCDC, at this point at least, or should have been, in helping us define what those are. We seem to throw anything at a wall and hope that it sticks. We seem to give preference for industrial type development when we continually say we can't find people to fill those type of jobs. We have hundreds of those jobs available, I've heard you say before.
And we don't have land.
We don't have a great land base for flat land development type projects. You know, I'm tired of hearing that we're an accolade now because of a recent decision that we're open for business. That's never not been the case. We have a growing community. We have a population that's doing really well. We have numbers that show that we're doing well. And I think a lot of that growth is coming on the backs of the people and our residents that are pushing. I want us to focus as a unified body, elected officials, economic development staff, otherwise, to start focusing on what we can do best, where we've got to be strategic about where we put those dollars. And, you know, I don't know anything about a potential regionalized industrial development park yet. I've heard it talked about. I would like to know a little bit more about that to say, is that the best place for us to put our focus in when there could be, you know, XYZ that some of us are aware of that provides 10 times the rate of return that we should be really focusing on. So I appreciate your presentation, and that's just a little editorializing about where I think we need to really put a focus as an elected body, update this at a minimum to create new goals and priorities, and then we start moving forward from there. I would like to see from you immediately some stats on the rate of return from those things we've been putting in. In particular, I suppose I just thought of this one, but we do have an increase in budget for incentives. I'd like, because of some of those tax moratoriums and things, I'd like to see where those dollars are going to go best. You know, where did it help with these businesses? Is that Lime Water? Is that one of these other locals or West 6? Is that, you know, would those projects not have happened without some of those incentives? Do we need to start targeting and building funds for some of those type of projects? I'm feeling like there's a lot of information I'd like to have there. So again, just editorializing that what I think we need to do as a body to focus on.
So I got lost in that one. So what was that you wanted? Yeah, what was that you wanted? The last thing that you wanted?
Just reiterating what I'd said before. Just, you know, what incentives were critical for some of the building projects, some of the investments that have happened recently. You know, I would have thought you working directly with these that they would have said in passing or something, or some post evaluation that they would have said, you know, if not for that loan from you all, I couldn't have done this project. If not for that tax abatement incentive or tax credit.
They are required to say that in writing for both our loans as well as the state loans, that they could not do the project. It's called the but-for clause, but we could not do this project but for this incentive. So that is for us a given. If they got those incentives, there is a but-for clause that they've signed.
We need those, I think, as a body to start looking at where we put our dollars best. So, thanks.
Squire Westman, I will say on that, I mean, I think it would be a good idea for you to have a talk with Terry, but then also a lot of things that you said there, I think would be good information for the comprehensive plan. I mean, I think that's things we discussed right now. So
we're starting to develop all those things.
Yeah. So, Squire Tracy.
Thank you for being here. Obviously, there are some things that you cannot discuss, and I get it. And you don't work for the court. You work for a board.
I do.
But I think, with that being said, I think, you know, the communication out of the judge's office is great. And I think just as long as you communicate with him on what you can, again, I think he's passing it along, or they're passing it along.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's an avenue towards us.
Yeah, and you know, economic development is if you work a project, you try to get as much information as you can from as few people as possible because of the confidentiality of it all. And so, like I said, I work with staff people all the time.
while he is the elected judge, he is also the staff person for the county. And so when I need a telephone pole moved, he's the person I'm gonna have to ask for that. But I would not come to the court and say XYZ wants to expand because they need a
Yeah, you
telephone
can't.
pole moved.
Right.
Right.
What about, you mentioned it, and I'm not gonna elaborate on this, I think we've done beat this horse long enough, but,
Are you calling me a horse?
the comprehensive plan update maybe to us in the future, if we could get that done, see where they are. Is that supposed to be finished sometime in this year, I think, maybe?
I'm gonna ask Squire Blackburn, I think he's probably been involved in that process a little bit more than everybody. I know we had a meeting the other day, but go ahead if you wanna speak on that.
It's supposed to be. They're still finishing up the goals and policies. They're still working on the different designations for land use. They're still working on a land use map. It's culminating right now. So, you know, it will happen this year.
It's been said for
It
2 years.
will. I think the consultants are paid out at least 80% right now, I think. And we've got some deliverables to receive. And then we've got the ordinance, the zoning update coming as well. So I think those two things are hand in hand. And it's coming real soon. And we need every advisory member to show up to the meetings. We need crystal clear communication, and we need the advisory committee to do their work, and we need people that aren't on the committee to not hijack it. We need clarity with that. So there's a lot of things happening right now, and but they're on schedule to be completed this year.
Is that something we can circle back to and talk and discuss? That way she can.
Yeah.
Yeah, in other businesses,
Yeah.
it
Yeah, we
makes
can.
sense there.
Yeah.
Not-
Any other questions for Terry? Terry, can I ask you real quick, like on this list that you gave us, if we took out all existing companies, about how many jobs do you think full-time were created 2022?
Seriously? Hang on. You're saying not,
Well, I mean, personally, I think existing companies, if they're gonna expand, they're gonna expand. you know,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
the thing. I think the expansion of the existing
Yeah, so, I
companies
mean,
is kind
they're
of
gonna
throwing
do-
me for a loop too, because they're basically here. They're
sure,
gonna expand.
80% of your jobs created are from existing businesses, right? That's why you always want to be sure you take care of those first. Number one, because that's where 80% of your jobs are created, and number two, because every single business who comes to this community has already talked to them before I ever even know they're looking at Franklin County. So we try to be very good at taking care of the businesses that we have. Gosh.
Just a rough estimation. People ask all the time, how many new jobs were created last year? You know, so
Well-
without looking at, existing, I'm just curious, is it 10, is it 100?
Oh, no, I'd say it's probably 150 probably, maybe more.
150 new full-time jobs.
That were
New
not-
businesses.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, that's perfect.
and I can do better at.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to catch you off guard. I was just listening to everybody and I was looking at this list and I was just curious. Squire Tracy.
Just to piggyback off what he said and what you said, 80% expansion is where your jobs are.
That's correct.
Do you,
That's a national number, but
Yeah,
it's pretty close to it.
knowing what we have here, so for example, Toby, Meritor, so do you have, are there long-term goals? Have you had conversations with those companies? Do they have per se a plan for where they see themselves in 5-10 years?
Yes, that's part of the business retention and expansion conversation. We meet with them once a year. I take the judge and the mayor, depending on where they're located, obviously. The judge gets invited to all of them, but we discuss their long-term plans. And that's twofold, because we want to be aware if there is a plan to leave. We want to know about that as soon as possible, so that we can try to mitigate that, but if not, we're prepared for it. And then also because we want to be able to help them get to that plan. So if their plan is to expand their building with a Canterbury, plan to move, we knew that probably 2 years ago, that was their plan, that had land issues and a bunch of things. But yes, we do discuss that with them. Now, do they always tell us? I'm sure that answer is 100% no, right? Especially the ones who are getting ready to leave, they're not gonna tell you until they're ready to walk out the door, most likely. So we can't make them tell us, but we certainly do try to have the conversation.
Thank you.
Terry, thank you very much. Everybody good? Perfect. So if you could send us a couple things, that's what I was gonna ask, if you wanna send those to Jack or something, or Mitzi, and then they can distribute the whole court.
Okay.
That'd be fine, that'd be good.
Okay.
Thank you. Alrighty, moving on, I'm gonna ask Amy, our treasurer, to come up. So, I probably wrote this, a little wrong, because our intention isn't really to get into the weeds of the budget tonight. I think we talked a lot about it last week, or 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry. I know there's been some changes turned in to Amy, like the jail, because he didn't have those things. So tonight, we are just going to be receiving the budget. I think next week, I believe, Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, we have a finance committee next week. Is that right?
May 15th.
No, we have one before that. Before the next meeting, no? Okay, so how does that work with the schedule then? Because we're going to meet, go over things, and then bring it to the court, correct?
Right, so today is just submitting the proposed budget for you all to accept it.
We do still have, so the changes that we discussed last week are in what you have. So the changes for the outside agency as well as the fire changes. And like Judge said, the jail changes are not in there. They came in after I submitted these reports. So we will meet the Finance Committee May 15th. Hopefully have all changes at that point. The first reading will be May 25th. And the second reading, June 22nd.
Okay, so let me just ask this, because I know Squire Tanner's waiting at me. So if Squire Tanner has something that he would like to request to the court to change, we can talk about that in the Finance Committee meeting on the 15th, and then talk about it as a whole court on the next court date, correct?
Well, that proposed budget on May 25th is pretty, that's what we need to run with.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
it needs to happen before, it definitely needs to happen before then. We need to bring that one in here as a rock solid budget.
It's up to you all. I can wait, but I want to make sure at least I get a shot at it and make people decide one way or the other. But it's up to the judge. He runs this. But
Well, it's up to you. I mean, if that's.
well, it's clear. It's clear. I would like to see if you don't.
Well,
I
think that's one of those things to bring to the finance, because I think that's what you're saying now.
That's what we're wanting to
It's not
take the
get into
finance
the weeds
committee.
tonight, bring it to the finance committee, so.
If I will make a motion then to amend the budget on the last day if I have to.
Yeah.
And we'll vote
I
yes
get
or
it.
no right then. I don't care.
Is it okay?
I may lose.
Is it okay if Squire Tanner informs everyone? That way, everyone knows what's gonna be discussed during the finance committee meeting. Is that okay?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why not.
Okay. Sorry.
I think that we should reconsider the burden on the banks by giving them a token of $5,000 because they are instrumental in the tourism development in this county. They bring a lot of people in, and I just think that if we don't do anything at all, then you're saying we don't really care. And I think this court does care. I think for the county provide some moral support to that program that's going on. It's very big. I know they make money. It's not about the money because they probably don't need the money, and $5,000 is not going to make them or break them either one. It just shows that we support that program. And that's the thing that would change that number under the tourism from 8,000 to 13. That's what it would do on that proposed budget.
Okay, so we can talk about it in the finance committee, and then we'll bring it to the court next month. Everybody else good?
But if need be, if I'm just sort of throwing this out, we have 10 days between that finance committee and that first reading. We could call a special meeting of the whole if we need to. If there's enough input from everyone that we
If there's
need to
enough
flesh it out.
changes that would, yeah, justify that.
If they're minimal, but if
Yeah,
there's something
okay.
significant, I would prefer to come back as a court to define before that date, but if
Yeah.
it's just minimal items.
Yeah. Okay, Amy, anything else on that?
No, I would just ask it would be as close to May 15th,
Yeah.
because it does take some time to get all these reports together.
And again, while we're still on this, thank you for all your hard work and the committees, because it's been a long run, but I do know that it's nice that we're ahead of the curve, we're not being rushed at the last minute, we're not doing special meetings at the last minute because we're running out of time, so I want to commend the whole court for that and staff, so that's a big thing, especially being the first one we've all done together, so thank you.
I'll add to that comment, it was very prompt, timely, that you all presented a budget to us before May the 1st, which is still before May the 1st, which is a requirement, and I kind of point the finger at myself before not bringing this up last week, but I did not. As a matter of fact, I thought there was 2 issues I was gonna bring up, and one of them, I guess I looked at the line wrong because it was funny.
That's okay, I looked at the line wrong and emailed everybody about it.
So
Amy sets me straight though, she keeps me in line, it's a good thing.
So after I figured out I was half wrong anyway, maybe all wrong, but it's a proposal, which I'm only one person, but I really think we should consider funding that program, because it's packed full of people. I go every year, maybe I shouldn't, but I do. I enjoy bourbon, I enjoy tasting it, maybe I should shut up.
All right.
Judge, if I could ask, we had a conversation about any contributions to public agencies or external agencies signing an agreement that they would use funds for a public purpose. My question is, a ticketed event such as that, what could we sort of figure out and define what the public purpose could be before we even entertain funding something, a contribution to them? And I'm specifically concerned that they gave away $40,000 last year of grant funds to students and asked for a significant amount from the city and the county to support that I felt was a bit of a pass-through, and was encouraging when that thing came up when I was at the city. And we promised for an initial period to help get it on its feet and get it up and going effectively, and a lot's changed since that time. But
Well, I would add, they asked for twice as much, they asked for 10,000, and I'm suggesting 5.
Squire Wisdom, I will say, your idea of that letter, Amy and I talked about it, and most of the members of the court have talked to me about it, and it's a really good idea, so I think once we kind of get this budget sent off, then that's something we can look at, because that's a good idea. We're always wondering.
I would say too, there are different line items. You've got your outside agencies, but then those events are a different line item, interlocal special events. So maybe unless you want those line items also to sign something, maybe we could just stick to those outside agencies.
really, anything that uses the public's funds. I mean, I think has to be some accountability for anything that gets access to the public's dollars.
Amy, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna give a judge's report, and it's a little lengthy tonight, things have been pretty crazy, so bear with me here. Last court meeting, obviously, we did a road trip. I thought it was very, very well attended, obviously. State Journal was with us. We identified a lot of roads in the county, mostly state issue roads, so that was very good. April 13th, we had a solid waste committee to discuss concerns about single-use reusable bags and disposable take-home containers. So we are looking as a committee and a task force at potentially eliminating that in Franklin County. Finance committee, I think y'all have heard, we've met 100 times, I think it feels like, so no disrespect to finance committee, I love you guys, but we've met a lot, but it's been good. Met with KYTC and Bluegrass Ad, talked about highway plans, priority projects for 2024. On Saturday, April 14th, Reforest Frankfurt was held out at the fabulous KSU Research Farm. I think they had a record crowd. Couldn't ask for better weather, but it went very well. Park Committee has met with engineers, design group, continue planning think they finally gave us about three weeks away from being full schematics and design, and probably another 3 or 4 weeks for pricing as far as on that project there. Main Street, April 20th. If anybody needs an autograph from, our Deputy Jack Kennedy, was in the paper for clean sweep out front. That was April 20th, and they picked up a good bit of trash. I know Squire Sebastian participated in that with some others. We'd asked Mitzi Jevin to go with Sky Hansen on April 27th on Saturday to Yes Arts. They did over 100 kids' IDs, which are really cool when they print them off and get all the information, and they had a big time with that. Andrew, do you have something for this one? Is it? No, oh, okay, there's the ID. Right there, I didn't realize he put that up, I apologize. A couple of us attended on the 25th, the community hunger food pantry event they had. It was very well attended. It's amazing how much they do for Franklin County over the past 10 years. They've given more than 1.7 million meals and provided the families. Applaud them for their servant leadership and efforts. Andrew, do we have anything on that as far as the, I thought we had a thing you snap on, and they're still obviously looking for money, they always need money. The food, crisis, the barcode, thank you. Yeah, I thought we had a barcode to put up. If not, I apologize. But they're always looking for volunteers. They're just a great group of people that are helping. Tuesday, April 25th, we hosted the comprehensive plan study here, and it was very helpful because Robert kind of led it, and he was able to put maps up on with, showed contours, it showed caves, it showed streams, blue line streams, infrastructure, where pipes were now, where they weren't. So we're kind of working on, I had asked them to, and Tina's working on it already, to kind of get a baseline of what Franklin County has right now. So we know how many percentages or what type of housing we have, how much industry we have here. We keep hearing numbers, but we haven't figured it out. So they're working on that. She had some numbers this morning, but it was per parcels. So she's converting that into acres and things like that, so we can kind of get some good numbers to see where we are. Because we always do hear things like, we need more of this land and more of that land. So I think before we keep saying that, we need to know what we have right now. So we're working on that. Andrew, you have the next thing for Common Fest this Saturday, April 25th at the Capitol. It'll be a 3rd annual Common Fest from noon to 5. I think most of y'all have probably been there. It's a community event leading up to kind of Derby week with music, breweries, distilleries, wineries, things for kids. It's down at the Capitol. The governor's there, the mayor's there. It's typically a great event. Hope for good weather. We have put a proclamation together for Historic Preservation Month and Heritage Week. That's going to be in May. I don't believe all the things are worked out yet. We'll be sharing details on social media and website once they're all finalized. And then, that being said, I'm excited to announce that we'll be having a celebration of the county, an employee appreciation luncheon on May 10th, which is the birthday of Franklin County. So we actually have a court meeting that morning, and appreciate Squire Sebastian bringing that to our attention. But we've been working on that, so we'll be doing a luncheon there. There'll be more details to come, but it'll be at the Carter House for friends, families, work families. It's an exciting thing to see how far this community's come in many, many years. And then if for some reason employees aren't able to be there, we're gonna have a system set up to have box lunches taken to them if they can't close down or whatever. Last thing I have, and I'll keep it short, KCDC appointments. So typically, I think everybody knows it's the judge executive's position to appoint to that board, but I just thought it would be transparent to share it with you before I announced it to Terry or anybody else. So had some applications put in. I have chosen Sean Cecil. He's basically profession is environmental consulting engineer. I think it would be a huge asset to the committee. And then Vasu Devin, hope I got that right, Vasu. He basically runs the IT for the state government. So he just retired off the EKU Board of Directors, and I think he will be a huge asset to KCDC also. So, let's End of my judge's report. I'm gonna ask Mr. John Mitchell to come forward. John has been looking forward to this all week. He told me earlier. He said he was excited to be here and ready to do this, man.
I guess quick recap, we're just basically still patching. That's kind of a hot item right now. Blacktop plant's running wide open, so we're doing good there. We have got a few new culvert pipes put in the past 2 weeks. I think we got Mr. Tanner's stuff took care of for him. We did the P Ridge project last week. Should work. The spring clean event. That was pretty good. It seemed like it was a little low this time. I don't know. It didn't get as crazy as usual, but you know, Saturday was a big day, but it wasn't like the turnout normal. We did Yard Waste Wednesday yesterday, had about 75 to 80 come in and bring stuff. It was busy. We have another compost giveaway tomorrow. That'll be the last one for the spring. That's probably be a busy day tomorrow. The paint striping truck is in town. We do have, I think he got 7 or 8 roads done that he's gonna try to finish up probably next week. I've got a few roads scattered around getting those done. Botkins Lane box culvert, that they've started working on that. And of course, just like remodeling an old house, you run into unknown. So I'd say we'll be coming back and probably making an amendment to that contract to, you know, add some more. When you get in there to digging around, things change. So that's just part of it. But that's going good. So we're getting ready. Got all of our mowing stuff ready. Hopefully, usually we start to do a little mowing before the Derby, and that's my plan. I hope we start sometime this week.
Okay, before we get that other thing, is there any questions for John Mitchell? Squire Tracy.
If it's okay, I'll ask now instead of other business, but.
That's fine.
The city, has or will, do away or suspend 3 services. It appears that, the yard waste Wednesday, it appears that they are directing people to the county. In your conversations with the city, did they give you any idea in regards to number of people or an average, or how many extra people you're going to have or need, or anything like that in the conversations that they called you?
I haven't talked to us.
They haven't contacted you over there? Excuse me, Judge, when the city called you to ask you about it,
we're gonna need to look into that because they never talked to me. I assume when I saw it in the paper, whatever, they talked to John directly. He and I haven't had a chance to talk, but yes, that was news to me.
But they're,
Yes.
nobody called. All right, thank you for that information, Joe.
Yeah.
nothing like communication.
Well, that was a question. I saw the announcement and I'm concerned about the use and the publication of the county's free dump permits and how much that's going to add to our bottom line with them doing away with services. So can we assess that?
Yes. On my list of things to talk to them about. But yes, that was all news to me when it came out.
Yeah.
So yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Will you let us know if it gets to a point that it's, I hate to use the word out of control, but it gets to a point where it's too much?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we know average wise, we know we're going one week and the other, but, you know, we've got pretty good average of what it usually runs, so we'll be able to.
Thank you.
John, I know we have a closed session for you tonight, but I do want to go ahead and recognize one of your employees who's retiring tomorrow, I believe, right?
Tomorrow is his last day, Mr. Billy Joe Giles.
There he is.
There he is, okay.
If you could say a couple things about him, you know, how many years, what he's done.
Yeah, Billy Joe's been there, it's be 18 years. I'd say he's one of the most dependable above and beyond people that I've ever had work for me. He's a good one, a real good one. He started out, basically just a light equipment operator. And he's been eager to work his way up through there, and he took over the solid waste enforcement job a couple years ago, and he's hit the ground running with it. I think he's done great with it. He's a go-getter. He likes to get things done, and he's tried. So he's done a good job, and we're glad to have him all these years. Appreciate him.
I'd love to. Thank you, Judge. I will tell you, for the amount of time I've been on the court, he has been rock solid. He has called me about things and worked with me when I've called him. He has been right there, good at following up, good at maintaining communication. I will absolutely miss every bit of it, and I'm sure the person that will be coming into that job will know my phone number just like he does. I mean, the good thing is I've even heard from him on the weekends about things. When he was like, I had to leave Friday, couldn't follow up with you. I'm taking this time now, hope you don't mind. I'm like, I'm open 24 hours. You can call me whenever. But I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss that a lot.
Yeah, he's a good one.
He is.
Really is.
He's great.
I hope he doesn't block my number like he's already done there.
Well, unfortunately, I don't know Billy Joe that well, but I've heard nothing but good things about him. So from behalf of the Franklin County Fiscal Court, Billy Joe Giles, thank you for your service, and we hope you enjoy your retirement. Again, I think we give him another round of applause.
No, thank you.
All right, just buzz on through this. Approval of minutes, does anybody have any questions about the minutes?
I do, Judge.
All right.
If we could take a peek on that last page, that second to last set of motions, just on the last page, if you look at that, you'll see that it's missing a word, motion by blank. You just need to get square, I think. For it to be official. That's all the only catch, Judge.
Thank you, Squire.
Thank you.
All righty.
Judge, the meeting time says we called to order at 10:56. I thought we were like 9:05 at that meeting.
The voting meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what that's always about, is the voting meeting.
Just, it seems longer than I remember.
All righty. Now, I believe Mr. Jeff Hancock is with us. Jeff, how are you doing tonight?
Thursday or Friday?
Yeah. We're getting ready to serve breakfast.
Good afternoon, Court. This quarter report is something that I do that we really don't have to, but I like to keep you apprised of where we're at. Right now, we've done about 30% total collection. When it comes to the motor vehicle side, we are sitting at 30% on both the distributions and the collections. We're right at 50% on the book to bank balance, which is what you all know is excess fees. Let me remind you, we just came out of March. It's our biggest collection month. It's our biggest money maker. And we have not had to pay for any elections. So what you'll see over the Q3 and Q4, you won't see as much net profits, just for the base of the fact that we'll have about 125 on each of those quarters in election fees. While we're talking about, can I run through a couple things real quick, Judge? Tuesday, May the 2nd is the last day you can order a ballot online. I told you all about this last time. If you have anybody that needs help and needs to get a ballot ordered, let's do that sooner than later. We really need those in as soon as possible to make sure the mail delivery system works the way it's supposed to in accordance with all the statutes. Early voting starts on May the 11th, 12th, and 13th, which is Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. The three locations, the Capital City Christian on the east side, the Capital Senior Center on the west side, and the Yes Arts location, the old Frankfurt Plant Board downtown. Election day, we have our 12 locations open. We have more equipment than we've ever had. We are absolutely 100% prepared to serve this community. We want everybody to vote. Right now, I can tell you by the number of requested absentee ballots, we are way behind the 8 ball. The interest in this race has not been significant yet. It could happen tomorrow. It could pick up immediately. I don't know. I do not have a crystal ball, but as of right now, the interest is just not where it has been. The ballot is very light. The ballot will be a very quickly voted ballot. I do not anticipate any issues at all. On another note, we are losing an employee that has been with the county for 27 years. She is retiring. Her picture would be up here except for the fact that she'd kill me right now. She would come in and strangle me. But Valerie Grimes has done the work of about 4 clerks. We're not hiring 4 more to replace her, but we might find out we need to. Valerie has been with the county for 27 years, has been a fixture in the motor vehicle, and is absolutely 100% probably the most intelligent person in motor vehicle work in the state of Kentucky. She will be a huge loss. We are not bringing in outside. We are bringing in a brand new employee, but we're going to hire him at the bottom. We're going to take 2 of our middle managers and separate her job into 2 jobs so we continue to promote from within. Charlie Pearl will be taking the job of the backline supervisor, and Sarah Beth McKeag will be taking the frontline supervisor. I'm very proud of them. I'm proud of my entire staff. So look forward to what they have to offer. I think they have their hands full. So any questions?
I'll hate to see her go, but she'll probably be glad not to see me coming down there every month with about way too many things.
Yeah, I'd like to say, I've known that Valerie for many years because of all of our times down there with businesses and trucks, and she always has the answer.
She does.
She's a great person, and hopefully she'll enjoy retirement, and they can go do some fun things. So.
Absolutely. I've tried to keep her from answering questions over the last month. It's kind of funny every time I walk in, I'm like, do not answer that question. Look it up, figure it out on your own. So
I was just in there yesterday, and she answered 3 or 4 of it because of someone new had asked her, and it was, I hate it, but I'm happy for her.
Yeah, me too.
Well, we could all give her a round of applause. Yep. If there's no questions for Mr. Hancock, I believe we're good.
Guys, thank you all.
Thank you. Alrighty. Amy, would you like to come up? I guess there's any questions on for Amy. She has 2 line items here.
So you've got your revenue and expense report as of the 21st. I'm watching the revenues very closely. I think our real property taxes are going to, we're going to meet, or we've already met that. I expect one more payment there. Watching closely the payroll tax as well, and I think we're going to meet that budget item too.
Any questions for Amy on that?
Just one recommendation, Judge, if I could.
Go ahead.
I noticed we're already at 100% of budgeted collections for property taxes, and we've finished the period of payment now. As of last week, I believe, was the deadline for payment. And we still have $24,000 outstanding. I would like to see somehow us to try to handhold a little bit more, make a little more concerted effort to try to collect on those taxes. I remember, again, sort of referencing the time at the city, that we assigned a staff person just to make phone calls on those and collected more than half at one point, just by taking a little extra time to outreach, because so many times those uncollected items are perhaps someone has moved, or an elderly person, or it went to the wrong address, that someone is taking care of their finances or something like that, and they're easily figured out more often than not. I felt like, I remember one instance where a property had been taxed for 13 years and the person had passed away and nothing had been done to correct that, and no one had ever noticed it. So I'm wondering if that's something we can take a look at and somehow have a staff member.
Yeah, we'll make a note. I think some of that's already been done, but I'll double check that, yes. Spartano.
What is a normal property tax collection rate? 93, 95? What does the sheriff generally sign off on?
I believe it's 97 or 98%.
That's what it is this year, but I think it's usually 95, 96. Any other person remember?
It's been 90, he's been running 97.
Okay, has it been 97?
He has
Okay.
been.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, we have collected our budgeted
Yeah,
6.17.
yes.
Yeah,
we're 6 point-
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Six,
I
almost
understood what you said.
6,200,000 almost.
And those have been handed over to the clerk's office as delinquent.
And that's the regular process, that's what happened.
Correct.
And I believe
That'd be
letters went
solid.
out from the county attorney's office as well. All right.
Well, that's gonna be good.
Thank you.
Because this income can't be invested.
All right. Amy, do you have anything else?
Somewhere.
I don't.
Any other questions for Amy?
Two, I think. Which one? Do we have any idea on the van for the coroner's office? Is that equipment expense for the, it says an F-150, but I'm assuming that is not outfitting the van that was damaged by insurance that was requested. I haven't seen it come before us yet. On the,
Where are you looking at?
court bills, sorry.
What's the number? Oh, the bills, wait a minute.
Court bills.
Are we moving into the
Not
bills?
budget,
Sorry,
sorry.
yeah, that's Kim then. Let's make sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, that was not the van.
One second before we get going on that. Anything else for Amy? No, Amy, thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
All right, let's go ahead and move on, payment of bills. So go ahead, Squire, let's get on the same page, please.
What is that, $8,000 for then, for outfitting an F-150 for the coroner's office?
It's just miscellaneous, all different kinds of equipment to fit their F-150.
Jack, you know by any chance? what that-
If you,
She might be able to pull that up. I know they have to do sirens and all kinds of stuff on their stuff. I'm assuming it's a bunch of those things.
Yeah, I think it's lab and gurneys. and
It's okay, I was just
things
wondering if
like
it was related to that and if that was
Yeah.
a new expense because of the new piece of equipment.
Any other questions for Kim on payment of bills?
Not a question, but I just wanted to give an accolade to Western Hills' Home Run Club for 72 bags of trash that they collected. They're our first payout, I believe, from the litter collection program.
Yep. A lot of trash.
Yeah.
It's a shame that people throw that much trash outside their windows.
I think we've already had a couple of payouts, but that's a huge amount.
Yeah.
I've seen one.
We've had
With that being said, if you don't care, I've received a couple calls from out 127 Swallowfield area, complaining about the trash trucks. They're not closing the top of their bins, so ultimately when they dump, they're not closing and they're blowing down the road, things are coming out.
Those are trucks.
Well, it's what is it, Republic or?
the vendor.
Yeah.
Central Company.
Okay. I just talked to him today, so I'll call him tomorrow and let him know that.
Yeah, so.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else? Unless we're gonna move on. I think we've gone over the PACE financing. I believe we've gone over the ordinance for the bond. Captain Brewer. The next one's yours.
The fire department is looking to apply for a grant.
Chief Brewer, by the way.
Oh, it's okay.
It's been a long day, I'm sorry.
I just said, I know, I was like, man,
That's rude, I was like. Sorry, I'll clarify that, Chief.
So we're looking to apply through the State Homeland Security Grant for new MDTs for our trucks. These are the units that we use to communicate with dispatch. Any information that dispatch units take in for our calls, they transpose it through there. Ours are getting pretty dated. We've applied for a grant or two in the past, and we're also trying to incorporate something newer that we can work with towards the future, incorporating some pre-planning software as we discussed during budgets. We will, I'm not real familiar with the ins and outs of this grant, so we've discussed using Bluegrass Ag to go through this grant process, since we don't have the grant administrator in the field just yet, so. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Chief Brewer?
So, Chief, thank you,
Please,
Judge.
go ahead, Squire.
If we don't get the grant, do we need to go ahead and proceed with the purchase of this because it's not something that we budgeted for? So, just
Correct.
trying to figure out, because I know there's no match to the grant, which is all aces if we get it.
Right,
But is this-
if we're not successful with this grant, we may have to very well look at that, because ours are getting,
Okay.
you know how technology is, the
Yes, sir.
operating systems are not, don't function that well, they're not fast enough to give them updated data that they need to get to the scene, so, we're hopeful with the grant, but if we're not successful, we may have to come back and look at doing that upgrade.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for the chief? All right, seeing no questions, we'll keep moving. All right, so I guess I'm gonna see if I have a motion, authorization to go into closed session per KRS 61.8101F. Discussions or hearings which might lead to an appointment, discipline, or dismissal of an individual employee.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those, nope, motion passes, so we're gonna head into closed session. Thank you. item is other business. Does any magistrate have other business?
Thank you, Judge. Over the last couple of months, I've received a number of calls inquiring about the Frankfurt Plant Board countywide broadband project. I'd like to see if you would contact the plant board and ask if someone involved with the project could attend our next court meeting to give the court and the community an update on that.
Okay, we'll make note of that, make that happen, sir. Any other business we need to discuss? Oh, Squire Tracy.
One more thing. P3 projects, something that we've talked about, tossed around a number of times, scratch our head over for a while. Projects that are privately owned and exempt from paying taxes. My question is to you, Judge, or maybe you can, Mr. County Attorney. Is this something that you all feel like we need to look at, or it needs to be looked at in regards to the legality?
So are you, give me an example, are you talking existing ones or future PP3s?
Existed right now and moving forward that are in our community.
I have heard over the last couple of years personally that there's been question as far as that they are not paying taxes. I have not had the opportunity to talk to our county attorney, and I'd rather not blindside him right now. But we can, yeah, well, if you'd like to speak on it, you can, but I know that's a whole.
It's something I can definitely look into if that's what.
Yeah, I'm not asking for anything tonight.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. We'll make it a priority to look at and then get back with the court on that as far as what we feel is right or wrong. Is that okay?
Thank you, thank you.
I'd echo that. I've brought that up for a number of years, and I think there is highly due upon us to review the current projects in our community. So.
Perfect.
And if I can. Judge,
that's Squire Tracy. Anything else tonight? You've been saving those up.
No, sir.
You're good?
For right now, I'm good.
Squire Whisper, go ahead.
Judge, I wanted to just get somewhat of the feeling of the court. For a while, we've discussed runoff issues and streams, significance of access to creeks and the river in our community, and sort of coming about with some planning finally to, one, provide access to preserve the character of our community, as well as maybe come up with a plan to how to maintain these waterways in our community. For the last month and a half or so, I've been sort of working on how we can go about best creating a conservation plan, most immediately, right, for the streams in our community, and primarily focusing on the Kentucky River, the Elkhorn Creek, and the Benson Creek, as well as all the other streams. But it's a fairly daunting task, and I've been looking at communities across the nation and having difficulty finding good examples that we can reference to establish an ordinance. And I suppose what I'm asking is, what is the directive of the court? And I'd like to ask that we take a formal step in potentially hiring some external candidate or consultant, I'm sorry, or something to sort of assist with this task, because it's going to take me at least a year sort of doing it on my own to come up with a viable ordinance, I'm afraid. And I would like to move quicker and proceed with something to protect our streams and create a zoning framework, let's say.
So let me ask for clarification, just so I understand, and anybody's welcome to join in here. So are you looking for the court to create an ordinance that protects, setbacks, things like that from our natural waterways? I mean, that's step one, but then you're looking at something broader, is that correct?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
So in the immediate, you want to do something to, let's say, protect the waterways that we have with certain things. Have you talked to, I know a couple meetings ago, you had the
Woods and Water Land, or sorry,
no,
not Woods and Water, the Bluegrass Land Conservancy.
Thank you. Have you talked to them at all as far as if they have any language?
I have. I've talked with them extensively, and there are some examples and some things to point us to. I think Woodford County has some language, but nothing I'm finding is really indicative that we could just replicate exactly that sort of works in our community. So I'm sort of, I suppose, trying to get a feeling of the court and which direction we would like to go, and if we would like something immediately that sort of states that we don't allow building within so many feet of a stream, and we don't unless it's maybe some kind of intentional public access point or something of that effect, or within established urban areas which might per se some community that's already built on the creek bed, right? Like Forks of Elkhorn comes to mind as an example, as possibly where there's a historic hamlet already established. But I think it's important that we start taking steps to establishing a comprehensive plan of stream protections and development plans, and fitting as the comprehensive plan is moving along. I thought at a minimum we should set a goal of this body that has to be included in that comprehensive plan as one of our things that we're going to start progressing with, because I don't quite see us finishing some of these goals and creating ordinances prior to that comprehensive plan being completed.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of lean on the court a little bit. Is the will of the court that we kind of start looking at things like that to Squire Tracy?
JW, has any of this been?
There is some, there's a lot of consideration on the waterways and streams, the blue line streams. There's a lot of consideration on that is going into the thought and the goals and policies, as well as that we're going to need to address, I believe, on the zoning ordinances. I know Mr. Hewitt, I don't know, it was probably 3 years back, we sat down, we've raised the, restrictions and the amount of retention that we have to have going into these streams. But as far as quality of water, I think that's something we have to address as well. And I've been working with a guy to try to get some testing done at different points in the creek to see how the hamlets and the housing and the farms around them affect the water at different points throughout the creek. And that's going to directly affect how we have to have sewers ran and things like that. So there's some things in the works on that, but I totally agree with you. That's something we need to look at more. It's only going to, I think, make the quality of life better and the quality of our water and streams better.
So I just want to make sure I understand, because I think this came from what we just went through, right? And I think we were both pretty upset about that. Yeah. So are we talking about just immediately coming up with something so that people cannot, particularly industry, can't build so close to the waterways? Is that what we're talking about immediately?
I would think proximity as well as output that would flow into streams,
right.
Sort of both of those kind of fall in line for an immediate effect.
Right. I would totally agree with that. I think that's a really good idea.
And I know the Department of Water, they've came in and we actually had some tests that weren't, results weren't in on some things. But I think being hand in hand with them, recommendations from them, and the water quality folks, we've got some in Frankfort, we've got some in surrounding counties, we've got some in Louisville that I think can help us on that. That I think would want to help us on that. Mm-hmm. And also not put an undue burden on any industry or folks, but just do some smart common sense stuff that is easy, low hanging fruit. That'll just make things better.
And I'll tell you, one of my personal goals is for my district. So many people or so many homes do not have septic or sewer systems. In my mind, this is sort of a step one, not to force people to do that. But there are some funds, some federal grants and some things that we could get to help assist property owners to create better living situations and encourage the stream health in our waterways. And we need to sort of set some precedent, some you know, be able to go in that direction, to be able to acquire some of
Without
those
being
funds.
punitive, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Sebastian.
I was just gonna echo my colleague here and reaching out to the Division of Water, because, I mean, certainly they have eyes all over the state, and certainly they have eyes in places like Martin County. And they are learning rapidly from what they're finding. So there might be some things that they are aware of, that they are pointing communities like Martin County to begin those steps. So there may be some things that working with them that may yield something. I mean, they're right here in town. We need to rely on those resources so much more than we do. That's why they're there.
Maybe I shouldn't say very much, but because we've talked a lot, but it's a very complicated issue when you go to talking about agricultural runoff, talking about cattle near blue line streams, you're not talking about just setbacks from people might own this property down there already. I thought what you said was, people have straight pipes now, which is already illegal. Is that what you said?
I wasn't really getting into that at all, but, you know, there's, in my mind, a lot of these environmental things beget us. We need to set some groundwork so we can help with some of those other larger issues. But what I'm imagining immediately is more on the development front end. You know, we've got one of the most popular waterway assets in the world here. And we have done nothing so far to
protect it.
To protect it in any way whatsoever.
We really don't.
And we're, you know, 1-2 developments away from losing significant portions of this asset that people come literally from all over the world to see. So I'm just imagining, you know, there's going to be a whole series of things, I would imagine, over the next 4 years of this fiscal court that we're going to consider, or I hope we consider, including maybe a plan about active management of the streams as park resources in this community. But for the initial part, I'm seeing, you know, some development pressures that we need to maybe get ahead of a little bit.
So I'm gonna suggest maybe we get together, Division of Water, and maybe even Ben or something with P&Z, and kind of schedule a meeting and start down that path. It sounds like it's the will of the court that we want to start being responsible about our nature, you know, natural assets and things like that. So,
Proactive.
Proactive,
We're already
yeah.
responsible.
Yeah,
We're
you
just
know,
trying to be a little proactive.
Long day again. Yeah, Squire Tracy.
Who would actually perform the water test? Obviously, we all know Georgetown is above us and Lexington is above us.
Mhm.
So who actually would perform those tests, and would one of those sample spots be right there at the Franklin County, I guess the line to the Georgetown, so we can get a good feel of what we are receiving out of Georgetown and
Now, I'm
Lexington?
assuming Division of Water or somebody like that, so I mean, I think it'd be almost the same people that we want to meet with and talk about this, so.
Because
you know.
some of their treatment practices, when you have other things that affecting the water in different areas downstream, some of the water processes they do when they treat water and release it back actually helps it. So I was always under the impression, though, if they're dumping their treated waste into this body of water, it's coming downstream to us, when in some cases it made the water better. So we've got to really be clear and sure and lean on those experts to help us figure that out.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but to go back with Squire Tanner said, there's a lot of farmland in Scott County.
And you know, like they're doing waters instead of ponds. They're trying to keep them out of there. There's a lot of that, and fertilizers and how that affects the water quality.
Absolutely.
It's vast and complicated, just like you said.
I think what he's talking about right now, just more immediately, is just talking about keeping like industrial stuff back far enough where it's not.
It's not just industry, it could be a home. I mean, it could be, you know, it's just, you know, protecting them.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
well,
There's many
let's
facets.
you and I get together, Squire Westman, and we'll get going on that. Squire Tanner, do you have anything else?
No, I'm shutting up.
It's all good, go on, Tom, we're here.
It's a complicated issue, and it takes experts to decide what's running in that river. We're not talking about setbacks as much as we are talking about well, the city of Frankfurt here is using chloramines to put in their water to get the chloride up, and that's been banned in many states. Not here though.
And I'm intentionally not wanting to get into the science of, and the health of the water, because it comes from everywhere in the region, right? A third of the state flows into the Kentucky River nearly.
Right.
I'm thinking more about preserving the view sheds, important resources along the waterways that might be, the Indian Rock comes to mind, right? Or Schweitzer Bridge, some assets that are along the waterways that we want to preserve what makes those things unique, and not let development pressures or otherwise ruin them for our community.
I think you see here tonight, it's the will of the court that they care about it and we want to move forward with it. So I think it's going to be a team effort. So I think it's a great suggestion and
thank you.
Look forward to moving with it. So, alrighty, any other business? Alrighty. This time, I'd like to go into voting session. Clerk, please call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Here.
Squire Blackburn.
Present.
Squire Dykus.
Here.
Squire Tracy.
Here.
Squire Tanner.
Here.
Squire Wissman.
Present.
Judge Muller.
Present. Alrighty. First item, authorization to approval of minutes from regular meeting on April 12, 2023. And that will be with the change that was
As
noted
amended.
earlier. Yes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to receive county clerk's quarterly report for 3 months ended March 31, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. Motion passes. Authorization to receive proposed fiscal year 2023 to 2024 budget.
So moved.
Should I mention our discussion earlier now or not?
I think it was noted.
Okay, it's noted.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. Motion passes. Authorization to receive treasurer's report.
Second, or so moved.
Second.
Long night,
Yes, it has been.
We're all
Sure
right
did.
there.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
focusing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Payment of claim. Is there a motion to deny payment of any claim? Seeing no motion was made, let the record reflect claimants are to be paid. Next item, authorization to approve an agreement with EPAD Program Financing and KY PACE Agreement with Peace Hospitality LLC and Forbright Bank.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes.
Let's just commend that for a second, if we may. Thank them for their investment in our community and for being our first project to use this type of financing that I think is going to be integral in the future.
Squire Wisman, that's a great comment. I was thinking the same thing. I mean, I think it's pretty cool of this court to be the first project in Franklin County to take advantage of this program. And I hope, and I'm sure you all do, that many more will do it for the environment. So thank you. Alrighty. Can I turn to the judge to read this? All right.
Use those vocal cords.
Yeah. Yeah.
Slow down, Joe.
First reading of an ordinance of the Fiscal Court of Franklin County, Kentucky. Authorization and approval of insurance of Franklin County, Kentucky general obligation bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $10 million, the bonds, authorizing the levy of a direct annual tax on all taxable property within the county, in addition to all other taxes, in an amount sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on the bonds, to the extent that revenues are not sufficient, and authorization and taking of all other actions, including the execution and delivery of a continuing disclosure agreement, federal tax certificate, IRS Form 8038G, and such other documents, agreements, and certificates necessary or required for the insurance of the bonds.
So moved.
It's the first reading.
First read. Can you read that again?
Excuse me?
Could you read it again? Issuance or interest?
Issuance.
Yeah, exactly. I think we all know. That's the second reading and vote will be May 10th.
I'm ready.
All right, next item. Authorization to approve a resolution to apply for a grant with the United States Department of Homeland Security and the Commonwealth of Kentucky for the Franklin County Fire Department.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to appoint Will Cunningham as Environmental Code Enforcement Officer.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to appoint Nathan King as firefighter.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Amy, don't leave.
After the question,